buddies. Thanks for joining me again today. This video is a hamstring extravaganza. Anything you can do to a hamstring, we're going to try to do it today. And you can always just use this video as a guide and do longer or shorter holds, but this will be in real time if you'd like to follow along with me. To warm up, we're going to start with Happy Baby and then go to legs up the wall. Since I won't be able to reach the microphone, you get into legs up the wall by getting your hip and shoulder against a wall, lying back, and then as the name would suggest, throwing your legs up the wall. First, we'll start with Happy Baby. So you come onto your back, and you can grab the soles of your feet with the palms of your hands, and you're sort of pushing the knees toward the floor. And if you like, you can sort of rock and roll from side to side. This is just telling your hamstrings, we're getting ready to use you, and we're going to be saying hello. If this feels too vulnerable or you have particularly bad hips, you can always take Upasana with the knees to the chest, and that still will stretch out the hamstrings a little bit. Just let them know that you're getting ready to work. So for legs up the wall, we're going to be here just a moment. Ideally, you're here anywhere from 3 to 10 minutes. We won't be here that long today, but there will be some silence, so if you have some music of your own, you can turn that on. I've got my shoulder and my hip against the wall. I'll lie back, and I'm going to throw my legs up the wall. See it if you... So the next thing we're going to do is a variation on legs up the wall. It's just a seated forward fold. So I'm going to turn to the side so you can see what I'm doing. You want to make sure you're up here on your sitting bones, not back here on your sacrum. And you want your feet about hip width apart. Pull the toes back toward the face, kick out with your heels. If that's the best that's available, that's fine. If you can reach forward, or you might like to use a strap, you're welcome to do that. And if you can reach your toes, it's best to tuck your chin to your chest because you'll open up into the low back and get some nice opening sensation even in between your shoulder blades. So I'll have my chin tucked to my chest while we're doing this. Remember that one side strong, one side long, the law of reciprocal inhibition of muscles. So if you pull your kneecaps toward you, your quads will flex. And if the top part of your body is flexed, that means the bottom part has to lengthen. So by stretching out your hamstrings, you can strengthen your quads, and by strengthening your quads, you can stretch out your hamstrings. That can be really hard on some people's low backs. You might not have a good range of motion if there's a lot of tension or tightness in the hips. So another alternative is to grab the sole of your foot with the palm of your hand, and you can kick out your leg. And so now we don't have the pressure in the low back. And your knee doesn't have to be straight, and you don't have to be able to reach your hand to your foot. You can always have a strap if you have such equipment in the house, or a belt of some kind. And your hamstrings are really quite dense. They're made up of several muscles. They kind of overlap in some places. So it's always a good idea to do loose fist pounding. Just make a very loose fist with your hands. You don't want to hurt yourself, but it's the same principle as tenderizing meat. And we'll take this on the other side. And it's really common for one side to work a lot better or feel a lot more open than the other side, so don't be horribly concerned about that. We usually favor one side, and so that tends to be the side that we're the least flexible on, that where we're really strong, it's hard to release. Release. So another way you can get to that deep, deep center of the hamstrings where you get some overlap is to tuck one of your feet in and then line up your big toe to your nose. Typically our toe is in line with the hip or the shoulder, and we want to bring it in. When that happens, your hips often go onto their diagonal, so it's a good idea to use a wall to make sure your hips are level behind you. You're going to be pulling the hip of your extended leg out behind you. So we got it. So your big toe is in front of your nose. You're leaning forward, but you're pulling back. So right now it's my right foot that I have out, so I'm pulling my right sitting bone toward the wall behind me. And I can feel both parts of my low back and hip touching the wall. And let's change sides. You should really be feeling this, again, in that deep, deep center cut of your hamstring. It should feel different from the seated forward fold from legs up the wall. It should really feel pretty intense and isolated into that center part of your hamstring. And I see a lot of people doing similar stretches before they go for a run or before they start their workouts, and they're holding things for less than 5 seconds at a time. And your hamstrings are so dense that you really need to be in things for 10 to 30 seconds at a time at the least. And ideally we would like it if you could hold things for a minute or more. But I realize there's only so much time in the day for a workout. So as long as you're following along with me, you should have nice ooey gooey hamstrings by the end. And release. So the next thing we're coming into is a series of things where we'll be in all fours or sort of partial above the floor. This might not work for your knees. It's called garland pose. So what you do is you just come up so that you have, usually if you have your mat out this way, you can have your heels on the mat and your balls of your feet and toes off the sides of the mat. And the key is you're just going to drop your hips down between your heels. And you can use your elbows to push your knees behind you. It doesn't look very ladylike. A lot of people will ask, is it okay if my heels are up off the floor? Yes, it is, as long as if you're gonna fall forward, make sure that you have a place to go to fall forward. So if you're doing this on the side of a mountain, that's not a good idea, don't do that. So this is called garland pose. Traditionally, it's called mulasana, which means sitting in shit. I don't know if that's a Trivial Pursuit question, but you've got that in your back pocket next time you're at a cocktail party. Good, now we're going to shift into all fours on hands and knees, so I'm going to turn to the side. I call this thirsty giraffe. You're going to step your right foot forward, and we want your foot to be fairly flat to the floor. A lot of people get back here. You might have to just ask it to come forward with you. Now we're going to walk the hands and hips backward. So your knee might straighten, it might not. That's okay. Your toes might come up, but they need to be pointing toward the floor. You cannot do it this way. If you do it this way and you lose your balance or you just hit something wrong, there's no place for your knee to go but down, and that's not going to feel good. So make sure you're pointing your toes even if your toes are off the floor. The same principle as when we were doing the center part of the hamstring, we were lining up the big toe to the nose. I have my right foot extended out in front of me, and I'm really pulling my right hip back toward the wall behind me. So you can walk it down as deep as you can go. And then to come out of it, you just walk your hands forward a little bit. If you want, you can say hello to lizard and then step back and take thirsty giraffe on the other side. So again, we start. We want your heel to be on the floor. We're going to walk your hands and your hips back. Even if your toes come up, we're going to point them forward. And now it's my left foot that's out, so I'm going to push back with my left hip. You put your hands wherever they feel stable, on the inside, on either side, just whatever works. Good, and again, just walk yourself forward enough if you want a little hello to lizard and back. The next thing we're doing is hamanasana. And you might like to have 2 blocks at the highest level. And when I'm doing this in the studio with students, we have a towel out in front of us so that we can place our foot on the towel and slide on the hardwood floor. So if you're doing this on carpet, that wouldn't work for you, but you might like to have 2 blocks or a chair nearby that you can use. Hamanasana, monkey pose, is the splits. So you just start here, and then you go essentially into thirsty giraffe. But instead of walking your hips backwards, you're going to walk your hands and hips forwards. So you might not get anywhere near to the floor, and we're not asking you to. We're just trying to ask you to go in as many different directions as you can. And all your weight's really in your hands, so that's where the blocks might be helpful or a chair might be helpful. In, and we'll just pull it back and change it out. So again, you can just do thirsty giraffe as an alternative, what we just did, but you can also just go as deep as you can with monkey pose, hamanasana. And back. So if you have carpet, you'll probably take your yoga mat with you. The next one we can all get behind. It's downward facing dog or dolphin. So you're in all fours, you're gonna curl your toes under, straighten your knees, and walk your hands back to your hips. I know this is bad form, but I'm trying to speak into the microphone. So this is a do as I say, not as I do situation, kids. So we want you to be pointing your sitting bones toward the ceiling. So it should feel like you're trying to touch your sitting bones to the ceiling and dropping and melting your heart towards the earth. So if you have bad shoulders or wrists, you can always come into dolphin. facing dog or dolphin, we're going to walk our hands and feet together, and we'll be in a standing forward fold. Now, we want the crown of your head to be pointing at the floor. So if this is a little much for you, we want you bending at the hips, not at the waist. So if this doesn't work, you can always be here with your torso parallel to the floor and your hands braced at your knees. What you can't be is here, because this is just torque on your low back. So you've got to pick one. You can be here, or you can be here. It's important that you're not locking out to your knees. You should be able to pick up your heels very nicely because your weight's not back in your heels. And we want a little bit of bend in your knee. There's a bend there naturally, but we definitely don't want this hyperextended. So, even this is better for you than the alternative of putting your weight in your heels. Good. Now I'm going to turn directions again and again. The way my microphone is placed in the camera rig, I won't be able to be heard very well because I'll sort of be talking into the wall and I have an echo. So where we're going now, again, you might like to have a chair to work with. You definitely need a blank wall. So you might do this in a hallway or a bathroom wall. We're going to turn around and I'm going to stick one of my feet up the wall. And then I'm going to walk my hand and my supporting foot back. So there's not much space in between me and the wall. And you'll also notice, young ones, that it's not the dorsal side of my foot. It's not the top of the foot where my shoelaces go. It's the inside, the arch of my foot. So the stretch in the hamstring is on my supporting side, and it's on the inner thigh on my extended side. Walk that out just a hair, and change sides. And walk it back out. Bend the knees, tuck the tailbone, roll the spine to standing. One by one, the head's the last thing to stack back on top. Also, a tip that I just discovered while filming this, you should put your foot on a soft, smooth wall, not a sharp rock one. The next thing we're going to do is pyramids, and then after that we're going to do some balance work. So you might like to have, again, a strap or a chair that is available for support. You're going to get your feet like you're on a railroad tie. So one right in front of the other. You don't want them hip width apart. You want your big toe pointing at the heel that's in front. So this is taking your hips sort of on the diagonal catty corner, and we're going to pull them back straight. This can bother people's low backs to come forward like this. So you can always have your hands at your hips or at heart center, but you'll really get that on the front side. And we'll change sides. There's some balance there, so we're not holding it quite as long as the others. So again, just like you're balancing on a railroad track, you want your feet right behind each other, not behind and off to the side. And we'll bring it up. So for the final two offerings to stretch your hamstrings, we're going to be balancing on one foot. Again, you might care to have a chair or a strap or a kitchen counter nearby, or someone to pick your dumb ass up if you fall. So it doesn't matter which side you want to start on. We're going to lift one of your feet up off the floor so that your thigh is out parallel to the floor, like so. Then, if you feel like you've got more, you can get your strap or your fingers under your ball of your foot and then kick out in front. You can do that on both sides. Just try it on this side now. See if this one is more steady, more stable, maybe not. You know, if you don't have long enough arms, you might need a strap. And it's okay if your leg isn't perfectly straight. And down. Same principle coming out to the side. You can just pull your knee up into your armpit and you don't need to go any further. But you can also grab your foot with your hand or your strap and kick out to the side. And again, knee doesn't have to be straight. To the other side. Remember, you can just stop here. There's nothing wrong with that. The objective here is more the hamstring stretch than the balance, so hold on to something. And bring it down. So I hope this was helpful to both you and your hamstrings. See me over at the Champagne and Chakras Facebook page. Let me know if this was helpful for you. Rock out with your workout.